Both record? Let's find out. I don't think that did anything. Oh,
I
no,
mean,
it is. Okay.
it did
Yeah,
not
yeah,
start the recording because the recording was already ongoing. So
yeah.
yeah,
Okay, I'm also recording it locally, so I'll just upload that.
nice.
All right, enough farbling. Um, I'll kick us off, Fabrizio, unless you want to.
Oh, please go on.
All right. Welcome everybody to Cluster API, our weekly office hours meeting. It is, let me scroll down, it's the 16th of July. Cluster API is a sub-project of SIG Cluster Lifecycle, and therefore we abide by the Kubernetes community rules of conduct, which we can summarize as let's try to be nice to each other, try to use the raise hand feature so we don't talk over each other. You all know the drill, I'm sure. At the beginning, we give a little time for anyone who's here for the first time or hasn't been here a while or just wants to say hello to identify themselves and say hello. So I'll be quiet and please go ahead and do that if you would like to. I'm not seeing anyone unmuting, so I think we'll skip that. Next, we have open proposal readouts. We have 3 currently. Does anyone have any updates on the update autoscaling from 0 proposal? Seems like no. How about the propagate taints from machine templates? I don't see Nolan here. If no one else has any updates, then the last proposal open is chained and efficient upgrades for clusters with managed topologies.
No update. I will probably try to give a push to the proposal / implementation maybe after code freeze.
Yeah, I think you guys are busy enough. All right, that's it for open proposal readouts. Let's go on to discussion topics. Oh, and if you feel like adding your name to the attending list, please do so. Not required, but on the discussion topics, the beta 0 release came out yesterday. There is a ton of stuff in here, but as Stefan was pointing out, I guess the way we've been doing the beta release in terms of the release notes is we do the delta since the last minor release. So this is huge, which is great if this is the first time you're checking it out. But if you're curious, like what the delta is between alpha 2, then we're not showing that. And so maybe we'll do that in the future. But right now, I guess you can go into GitHub and figure out the diff yourself or something. Yeah, go ahead, Stefan.
Yeah, just one very small addition. On alphas, we did basically both, right? So we did the
Did
delta
we?
since 1.10.0 and the delta since the last pre-release. Just to mention it because I wasn't sure if you knew that nuance. That on the
No, I
Omniverse,
thought,
we
yeah.
didn't do a different diff, we did an additional diff.
Okay.
Just a few.
All right. Well, so we still have a to-do item about update these to display things that way. That'd be more useful. So yeah, beta 0 is out. We'll have a little more to talk about related to that next. There's also 2 patch releases out. We don't need to drill into those, I don't think. And yeah, I don't know. Does any of the maintainers want to say anything about the beta in particular, or should we move on to the next topic?
Yeah, maybe the usual call for action. Please test, provide feedback. That's the good time to get feedback and get them addressed.
Yes. And the release team today, I think, will be going out and doing communication specifically about this. So if people weren't aware, I think that constitutes will go to most of the provider repos and open an issue saying, hey, the beta is available, please integrate it. So that'll be an additional nudge. Yes, go ahead, Neha.
Fabrizio and Stefan, I just wanted to know, as part of the Vivan Beta 2 API changes, are we going to address the print columns or not? Or how can I find out, when this would be done? I linked the improvement proposal in the Zoom chat.
I think a quick answer there is currently not really a way to know when we get around to that. Because it basically depends on when we finish the other things that we want to do before that. Fabrizio will get to in a bit. I think realistically, it will be either RC0 or RC1.
So
Yeah.
it will be part of CAPI 1.11, but right?
Yeah.
Okay. The release doesn't matter. I just wanted to know if it would be part of CAPI 1.11 release or not.
No, it's just basically that we're focusing on everything that is that we consider part of our API, that basically this stuff is stable as soon as possible.
Okay.
And CRD columns is basically something which is like technically not part of the API. I mean, we basically tell people you can do whatever you want, but we don't guarantee that if you write a shell script against our print columns that it will remain stable. But our goal is absolutely to get this done for 1.11 and ideally realistic RC0, RC1, which is like either in 3 or in 4 weeks, probably, depending on the outcome of the next discussion in which week. But
okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Great. Fabrizio, do you want to give us an update on V1 Beta 2?
Yep, thank you. And thank you for the release team, for the usual great work from the release team. Okay, so the biggest part of the next release is V1 Beta 2. While implementing, we sort of divided the implementation in few parts. The first part was the core goal of the new API version, that was all the improvement in status. This completed. It is now completed. Apart, some minor follow-up like print column, like Nia pointed out, but the work is completed. Then the second goal that we had in mind when planning this API version was to improve our compliance with Kubernetes guideline and leverage on the great work that is being done on Cal. And this implies not only formal compliance, but it also makes better your serialization. You will stop to get empty object or zero values were not necessary. This will allow to improve Go type usability by dropping pointer where it is not necessary, and also as ancillary work, we remove the nested strat or strat shared across type. So we did a lot of work here. I'm very happy because we achieved most of the goal that we planned. I think that this job is, I will consider it a 95%. We are still pending to check the outcome of one last Cal linter, which is being developed. But we also this part is completed. So now we are basically at 2-3 weeks from the code freeze, and we discussed a little bit among maintainers today and in the last few days, and we decided to go on with what we consider in previously extended goal of this API, which is to work in improving consistency across API object. What does it mean? It means that in Cluster API, for instance, we have a machinal check, and then we have the same machinal check object that pop-ups in cluster topology or in cluster class, and similar, we have rollout settings that pop up in different places, or remediation settings that pop up in different objects, etc., etc. So we spent some time going through all these objects, all these new features that were added over time, and we look at it. These across all objects, and we have a proposal to make this consistent. Basically, in this, the proposal is in this issue. You have first the current state, and then you have the desired state, object by object. The simplest way to look at this is copy current and desired state into file and make a diff, and you will figure it out how it works. Yep. So we decided that this is a valuable work to try to get into the Viva Alpha to work. And so what we are planning to do, apart from finalizing the API in the issue that I linked and that Matt just showed, is we would like to go on with the changes as soon as possible. And we are also proposing a change in the release plan, which is basically to move the code freeze and the release day by 1 week. So instead of the 12th of December release, it will be code freeze will be will be postponed by a week, and it will be the 5th of August, and the release will be the 19th of August. What is interesting is that this is not going to impact the V1 11.1 release, which is when we release official support for the next Kubernetes version, because the next Kubernetes version this year is happen 1 week later than usual. So we are basically using the week of delay that Kubernetes added to its own schedule to have a little bit more time for our release. And yep, so the call for action for the community is please comment on the API changes if you have opinions, and if you also have change or concern about the change on the release schedule, please let us know.
Looks good to me, but definitely weigh in if that's a problem for anyone. Any questions about B1 Beta 2, how it's going and the schedule, etc.? Sounds like no. Thank you, Fabrizio. I think we're all on the same page. Next up, we have Igor and Joe.
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit last time. But right now, when you use cluster class, there is one version and managed upgrades. And we'd want to allow optional SKU for the worker groups. Our specific use cases, we control plane upgrades. Our customers control worker group upgrades. But just having SKU support, I think, would be nice to have.
Yep. Do we have any additions or news, or are you just calling it to attention again?
No, last time we chatted, we wanted more input. I don't recall from who we're missing input from, but yeah, so that's why I'm bringing it up again.
Yeah, go ahead, Joel.
I raised this on the issue, but I thought I'd raise it here as well in case anyone objects. But initially, the issue is talking about just doing a kind of Z-stream SKU, so patch versions. Since Cube supports some amount of Y-stream or minor version SKU, is there any reason to exclude minor versions from here? And I know you said that's kind of fine, but not your use case. Is there anyone else who would be worried about us allowing, obviously within the Kate support window, some level of minor version SKU?
Stefan?
So I think my main concern is around that we have to rethink a huge part of our existing implementations in cluster webhook, cluster topology controller, KCP, machine deployment, machine set controller, because they're all, so we spend quite a big amount of time a few months ago to basically close all the race conditions and gaps to basically be sure that you can only trigger one upgrade at a time, which then goes, this is all in the context of cluster class, by the way. I think we have no restrictions if you don't use cluster class. You can just do whatever you want. And mostly, as I say, to 99% without cluster class, you can just do whatever you want. There are some very, very, very small limitations. But what I mentioned was about cluster class. So basically, we enforced like all like the guardrails and all of that stuff to basically make sure that everything works with each other. You can only trigger one upgrade at a time. There's only one upgraded progress in a time. We can make sure that basically there happen no machine remediations with machines that cannot come up. And basically everything works. And it was like, I don't know, I was thinking through this like 1 or 2 days to make sure that it actually all works. If you basically now start allowing to pin versions, and I mean, that's what comes down to, right? You can say, oh, this machine deployment should have this version, and this one should have that version, that one should have that version. I assume all in the context of cluster class, because as I was saying, without cluster class, this should all already be possible as far as I can tell. So if you do the cluster class, basically, we have to now, on top of like the complexity we already have, we also have to think about all of those edge cases that basically we are not in control over like rolling out one upgrade, but there could be an arbitrary amount of skews between different pieces of the cluster, and they could change in any direction at any point in time, I assume. Which just opens like a ton of additional cases that we have to worry about. So I'm not sure if we can make the safe, essentially, if we have to cover all of that. That's basically what my short version of that last week was like, there are a ton of implementation details that we have to figure out. Yeah, but I let others speak.
Fabrizio, you were next.
Yep. So I can only echo Stefan. The evil is in detail, and the complexity is just huge. I'm just wondering. So I won't enter in the merit of the use case, but usually the patch upgrade is not disruptive and it should not impact user workload. Apart from the rollout of machine that can happen also for many other reasons. So, but it makes, in my opinion, considering version skew makes a little bit more sense if we look at the minor. But if you look at minor, then we enter in an entire new category of problems, because basically the Kubernetes version skew has rules that are defined on minor. And if you're using kubadmin, for instance, you cannot join a node on a Kubernetes, in a kubadmin version, which is older than the control plane Kubernetes version. So that means that for the time when you have a skew between control plane and workers, things like machine remediation or scale up won't work, which is something that is today acceptable today, because basically the upgrade is designed to be as fast as possible. But if you start making the skew a persistent state, then many things will become more complex. So I'm thinking just, I don't know, a condition on the cluster, you will have always something reporting that you have machines that are not up to date and stuff like that. So the impact is really complex. And I will also, yeah, if you think at stuff like chained upgrade, for which we have a proposal, or in place, it just, okay, are we sure that we want to take in this complexity in cluster class?
So, well, so for our use case, it's very disruptive because we're running AI workloads. So anything touching that is super disruptive. So we have to be very careful with how we time it and when we do it. And we have to do it for like different groups of nodes in a cluster at different times. We can't just do like an upgrade across the whole thing. And as far as the complexity, like I would imagine that this is like an opt-in to user managed like versions. So like there's all the like managed upgrade, that's all orchestrated and rolls through. But this would basically just like opt out that worker group. And the user would be responsible for the version for whichever worker groups have this set. So it'd be like an optional, like, hey, I want to manage this myself.
Yeah, Fabrizio, go ahead.
Yeah, it seems that if I remember, I read something about mixing this idea that wasn't the issue to mix up unmanaged machine deployment and managed machine deployment in a cluster. So I just want to make this. So today we don't have nothing we don't have this concept to allow in a managed topology to take out a machine deployment from management and then taking it back in. I'm not sure it's something that makes entirely sense.
Yeah, no, I
But
don't.
sorry, may I finish? Then I let you speak. I just want to make it clear that even if it's technically possible to have a cluster where you have both managed machine deployment and unmanaged machine deployment, this is something that we are not testing in any way. So I literally don't know if it will work or not. It will cause edge cases or race condition.
Yeah, no, when I say unmanaged, I don't mean like just joining a raw machine deployment to the cluster. I mean like if this value is set, it'll be a worker topology machine deployment. It'll just be excluded from all the upgrade logic, almost like being deferred.
Deferring upgrade is something that is already possible today.
Right.
But deferring upgrade is again something that is temporary. So
Yeah.
I want to upgrade my cluster, and I have a bunch of nodes, and I have only a few maintenance, a short maintenance window. So I want to make this in 1 or 2 days. Yeah, it is possible today. You can do it. But for 1 or 2 days, you will have issue like you cannot remediate machines or stuff like that. So if you want to make this reliable, probably is make and you have different node groups that have different life cycle or different teams behind them, make more clusters. I think that's the cleanest and simplest solution,
that's
and
not an
also the
option.
the robust one.
That's not an option. We don't have control over what your customer.
Yeah, basically our customers are setting these schedules for us. So like and it has to be independent of the control plane. So we need a way to control that version. Like we love all the features of cluster class. Like it's extremely useful for us, but we just need to be able to control our worker groups deployments independently. And as like for the complexity of the implementation, like if this is an optional field, so like users don't have to use it, and if it's not there, it goes through the entire managed upgrade. But if you do set it, then like we're gonna have like some controller setting this, our own controller, then that means that we're opting into, hey, we're gonna manage this version on our own. We accept the risk of that, and all that stuff.
Being honest, if it is a feature where you accept a risk, I Yeah, we have to think about it. I will not make it a first-class API object, a first-class API field.
And the problem is basically we have to disable safeguards across like 3 or 4 controllers, right? To make sure
exactly.
you can actually do it. And then that's just the explicit stuff that we're checking. Whatever assumptions we made the last few years, I don't know what breaks, in which way and under which circumstances.
And if it is a field somewhere, people will start using it, and they will shoot on themselves on the foot, because so. Or
I would say what probably works similarly to setting those fields is probably putting those that skip annotation. So there is an annotation where you can say like defer upgrade or something, and you can put that on specific machine deployments, or at a certain point it then applies to all the other machine deployments on class-spec topology. Basically setting that, and then setting the version directly on a machine deployment. That probably works similarly well or bad.
Yeah, but that's getting super hacky because
yeah, but the same thing is also hacky. It will be an official API field, but it's like the bets are off, right? If this works.
But I mean, like just at a high level, like I think we should support skew of workers in control plane, right? Like core Cappy does. I mean, and like that's like a core Kubernetes functionality.
I don't say no, but the problem is that we are trying to move away from the user most of the complexity of managing a Kubernetes cluster. So, and it took 2 years to get stuff working with one Kubernetes version. I got your point. I'm just worried that, yeah, let's add a field. And then we basically spend the next 2 years chasing down edge case, race condition, etc., etc. So this is what worries me. And I'm telling this not for the fun of telling. I'm telling this because, Kubernetes is that is the control, the bootstrap that most of the folks use as its own constraint, and we have to deal with this unless we invest time in changing stuff in Kubernetes. And add-on management on top of as its own constraint when it is, and the entire logic about, if you look at the topology controller, there are concepts like my cluster is upgrading, or the condition, and we are using this concept that it took time to refine and to make it not only in the controller to do the stuff, but also in the condition to report state, etc., etc. So let me say, everything can be done. The question is there, first of all, enough request for this feature to a critical mass to invest time for the critical feature? Because we are going to touch and add complexity in a lot of places of the code base. And then we have to maintain this complexity. And we know, let me say, we have our scar about this. So
I mean, we're sitting on a ton of code that now nobody maintains anymore, right? But still everyone complains about it.
So this is why I'm asking, because let me say, if you look at cluster API, at the end, what it makes very easy is to create many clusters and cluster class. And if your use case is, yes, I have many users with different upgrade windows and many users with different requirement about the Kubernetes version and so on and so on, it looks like that the natural solution in cluster API is just to have many clusters. But let me say, I have to think a little bit more about this. I just want to make it clear that this will be a It's not as simple as just, oh, let's add a Kubernetes version and oh, let's change. It is a lot of work. We're talking literally about a ton of work.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean we're happy to like last time we talked I was out so I haven't had time, but we're happy to have our teams work on that and put up a draft MR and go from there.
Joe, did you want
And
to?
yeah, we'll be using this in production. So this is not like something we're gonna like drop as an experiment and then abandon. This is core product that we are in need of. So we'll be here to maintain it.
Justin, I saw you had your hand up. Did you get to say what you were thinking, or?
I mean, I think one of the virtues of Kubernetes is this like platform for building platforms idea, right? Like it sounds like there are two use cases here, right? There's the people that want to use Cluster API directly and the people that want to build it into a bigger system, right? I think we probably need to find a way to let people build it into a bigger system and say, hey, you know, if you do stuff that breaks the version skew rules, you are gonna shoot yourself in the foot. But we need to find a way to do that without like, you know, exposing that foot gun to people that are not basically like building that higher layer of orchestration, right? So I think, I don't know if there's any mechanism we have to like enable expert mode or whatever it is, but is there some way we could achieve that so that, you know, the expert users or the people that are building systems on top can unbuckle their seatbelt if that's the right thing to do, and eventually it becomes, I hate the seatbelt analogy in this sense, but eventually it becomes safe for everyone, and we can like, you know, roll it down to everyone. But I think that's how we make progress as well. We like the people that are pushing the envelope, right? So just observations, I think.
Fabrizio?
Yeah, just to answer to Justin. So in Cluster API, we already have this expert mode and the autopilot mode. So the expert mode is basically you can use your control directory and orchestrate control plane object, machine deployment, etc., etc. It already supports everything we are discussing. And we know that there are companies that are already doing SKU upgrade and stuff like that. What we are talking about is the autopilot mode, that is basically cluster class and managed topologies that today support only one version. And the reason is because in this autopilot mode, we have to make opinionated choice just to make it work and make it as simple as possible. And this is basically, we are working on this since 3-4 years now. And you know, Justin, you know better than me how much is complex to make things simple. And yeah, this is another case, okay, where we push the boundary. Honestly, I think that for users, one of the biggest pain in Kubernetes is to catch up with release. And if I have to look at my personal priority pipeline, I will prefer to allow the user to move, to catch up fastly with Kubernetes release, which is something that is possible in Kubernetes and very efficient now that you can skip -3. And so this is why I'm trying to drive chained and efficient upgrade. But that's another topic. Sorry if I went there. I just wanted to tell, oh, it is already possible. Expert mode is already there. What we are talking now is the autopilot mode and make it, yeah, a little bit more complex.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of other really useful features though in cluster class that we don't want to lose while we manage and have our own managed upgrades. So, like I like the feature flags idea. What if it was possible to have like different autopilot features toggled on your cluster class, so we could like toggle off managed upgrades, and then we're responsible for the upgrades. And then, you know, it eliminates that complexity of what do we do if a user's like has this on one machine and group, the other machine group doesn't have it. Like, what if we just disable managed upgrades and then we completely own the upgrades, but we get all the other nice features that we love of cluster class?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's possible, but what I'm hearing is the level of complexity is obviously going to be high, and there's some battle scars around code that isn't generally in use. So anyway, do other people have any further comments on this, or?
So it sounds like a proposal is probably the next step. We can write something up and start getting that reviewed and just see how it goes from there.
That's the general flow, Fabrizio?
Yeah, I think, let me say, I do not believe that it is only an MR, just to answer. And I'm not saying, I see a comment, we are not saying that people are noobs or whatever. We are just bringing up our experience that this takes a lot, and it is a lot more complex that you might expect.
Yeah,
So
what I definitely would like to see is like basically we have to write up like how this whole thing works at the moment, how the various things are interacting with each other, and then how the new thing works and what should happen if we use the current mode, use the other mode, or transition between both, or mix it up, right? Because maybe you only pin some versions on some machine deployments. And if I'm
Yeah,
just
I think-
looking at the description of so we have a Google Doc with the description of the current state. This will be really, really tricky.
Could you share that doc, by the way?
Yeah.
Or
Fabrizio?
I don't want to get into too much implementation, but if it is just a flag that's obviously turning it on and off, like gets weird and that leads to states, but if it's just a flag like disable auto upgrade. And
so
then,
maybe just to give an impression, like what all goes into this, right? So basically, just a high level. So we have a cluster webhook that does various validations, including stuff like only allow a new upgrade and upgrade is in progress. And then we have the topology controller, which basically at certain points in time propagates the version to control plane or to machine deployments. And we have various upgrade hooks that we want to call at the right moments in time when we transition between control plane upgrade before, after, worker upgrade before, after. You want to even add a bunch more there. Then we have basically pre-flight checks in KCP and in the machine side controller, which are blocking, let me think about remediations and rollouts if the version skew is in a way that new machines are not coming up. And then we have on top of all of that logic in the topology controller, which basically makes sure that as soon as you trigger a Kubernetes version upgrade, any other change that is pending is basically rolled together with the Kubernetes version, right? That you don't get like, the thing is basically if you change the version on the cluster class and then there are a bunch of other changes, you want to make sure that they're rolled out in sync, in lockstep basically with each other, so that the changes are actually rolled out together and not like, oh, I made another change which is for Kubernetes 133, but it's coming before Kubernetes 133 and then the machine doesn't even work anymore. So, and especially also the last part, I don't even know what it means that like a Kubernetes version is upgrading is pending or in progress. If at any point in time, basically people can pin or unpin versions on machine deployments in various ways. So this sort of stuff just becomes really, really hard. And then what I didn't mention yet is we have this proposal open since 2 or 3 months that we want to merge soon, which is basically chained upgrade, which then allows you to go up by multiple versions and then orchestrate rollout of control plane and worker machines in a way that you can on one side upgrade multiple minor versions of the control plane, but also skip over worker upgrades within the Kubernetes queue. So, and all of that together, I'm a bit concerned how we get this like in a way that, it mostly works.
Sounds pretty hairy. Well, thanks,
Okay.
Igor and
Sorry,
Joe.
let me add one more thing. And then
Yeah.
there was one additional request, which is sort of a nice to have feature. So at the moment, what I was just mentioning, this basically we have this basic feature for Kubernetes version where we say like, okay, you change the Kubernetes version, then we roll out first the control plane and the machine deployment with a certain concurrency if you want and all of that stuff. And if you have other changes pending, then we combine those pending changes with the Kubernetes version rollout. But what also makes sense is if you don't even have a Kubernetes version rollout, you just want to make some other change. I don't know, you want to change your OS image for some reason. Maybe there's a CVE in there. Ideally, you don't want that happens to every single machine in your cluster at the same time, which is what happens at the moment. So we also need a sort of staggered rollout even for features without Kubernetes version, which is also not yet in there. So this is probably also another thing that, at least forward-looking, we should really have, because the current state is really bad, to be honest. that every other change apart from Kubernetes versions just hits the entire cluster at the same point in time, and if it's broken, then I mean, you have safeguards, right? We're not replacing like all machines at the same time, but basically KCP and all your machine deployments, each one of those would immediately get hit by the changes, and every one of those tries to replace their machines at the same time. And if it's broken, of course, all of those get stuck in the first machine, but that's still not good.
We need that same feature, so that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
But let me say, going back about next step. So, I mean, I'm just trying. My major concern is that it is the right moment to go down this path because complexity is high. We have other stuff that is already piling up, and it will impact this part. But that's okay. I'm definitely happy to start a discussion. Could be a document. I think that the simplest and the fastest way to collaborate is on Google Docs, at least while shaping out ideas, and then move to PRs. This is how usually we work well. I just don't have much bandwidth, at least until we complete V1 Beta 2, because we are trying to make the maximum out of this opportunity to change our API, because the next API version will be, I don't know when. So we are trying to make the maximum out of this opportunity. This is why we don't have much bandwidth for anything else now.
Yeah, and we're not in a huge like hurry or anything like that, so that's all good. Cool.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah, thanks for coming and bringing this up again. Do we have any other commentary on version skew? If not, it looks like we're at the end of the agenda. Does anybody have anything on their mind before we sign off?
Yeah.
I
will try to summarize quickly the discussion on the meeting notes so we have track. Please, Igor and Joe, take a look. If I forgot something, feel free to add. Yeah, call for action. We have a few jobs or a few flakes that are piling up. One is really annoying that we have the IPv6 job in our end-to-end failing. This is probably due to some change that was applied to the AKS cluster where we are running the jobs. Because everything was working and then suddenly one day everything broke without any change to that area of the code base. TLDR is that if someone want to help to get the release out and have a little bit of bandwidth, if you have time to look into flakes or stuff like that, it could really help maintainers at this stage. Also the release team.
Do we want to try and move stuff over to the GKE cluster now based on that one test, or do we not?
It is not our call. So basically there was a huge push from the community to move to use the credits that AWS offered, and we will try to we will follow basically guideline. We were discussing this in a thread in the cluster API release channel, if I'm not wrong, Stefan. And we are basically going to engage test infra, ask them what is, in their opinion, the next best course of action. We still want to do another test to prove our theory that the issue is on the infrastructure and not on our side, which is to run kind of test that now works, that are testing IPv6 on
EKS. Yeah.
on EKS. So yeah, so we are trying to nail down this problem, which is really annoying because it is an all end-to-end test. We have option, okay, we can suspend temporarily IPv6 or run all IPv6 on AKS. We have to figure it out.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's the end of today's office hours, unless somebody has something last minute. Let's call it good, and hope to see everybody next week. Thanks for coming.